accent.
I don't. No, my accent never really stuck because I traveled a lot as a kid. I lived in Africa for a couple of years, and I lived in France. And obviously, all the traveling I did, my accent doesn't stick. So if I'm in Reading for too long, I might sound like someone from Reading. If I go to London for 2 weeks, I'll pick up the London twang. So I never sound like
Birmingham.
Good question. From Birmingham, but family from Africa. Yeah, Gambia.
Okay.
Motherland.
Okay.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Technically, if I say what I studied dancing first, I would say I did contemporary and ballet first, because I picked it up when I went to college for A-level.
Yeah, that's it. All right, everyone, home time. Let's go. Sorry, go on.
I picked it up in college because I wanted to be an actor at that time, so I did performing arts, theatre studies, and I picked up dance because I thought, the more skills you have, the better you have for getting in the industry. And like halfway through the first year, because I was always interested in all these urban stars, I didn't know what to call them at the time, but I didn't know people spitting on their faces and all that kind of stuff.
On their faces?
I wanted to do that. So I started watching videos from YouTube, because the studio in my college was pretty much free all the time. I just started trying to teach myself from there. And then I met some b-boys in Birmingham, started breaking. I wasn't a fan of...
That is a sick ringtone. I'm keeping
Got
that.
like the pit walkers, you all what was that?
Oh yeah, you talk about club jokes.
Life story.
Sorry.
So yeah, technically I went through breaking. I injured my knee, so I had to start going on the floor. Then I picked up popping and locking. I tried to do crump, but it didn't look too good at that time. Back in the day, crump was...
Yeah, I was there.
I was kind of crap. And then I was always a freestyler, like I like freestyling, so I naturally swayed towards hip hop, but I didn't know any foundation. So after I did Just Debut with Turbo in 2010, after we did that, I was like, okay, I need to really understand what I'm doing properly, because I felt I did crap. Like, we got to the finals, but it didn't really mean anything because I thought it was kind of shit. So came back to Birmingham, and do you know Mamson? Like a famous house dancer from Paris. One of his students moved to Birmingham, and she could do house, good, and I couldn't do house. So I was like, I need to learn that. So I trained with her, went to Paris, met Mamson, trained with him, and from there it kind of just skyrocketed. Depends on the day.
Yeah. All right.
My main two is hip hop and house, but depending on how I feel, the music reaches me a different way depending on the day. I would say I probably lean more towards house, because I've done more house competitions than hip hop competitions because of Turbo. It kind of
Naturally
dragged me into it. So I was like, okay, more house, and then my hip hop kind of deteriorated. But I'm trying to bring hip hop back. So, but yeah, if I was to say favorite, house more likely than hip hop, but both of them are kind of equal. In a couple of ways, because I understand, because I did a lot of styles and I got to, let's say, play with my body a little bit, but that's not today. But you get what I'm saying, right? Because obviously different styles work different parts of your body. Obviously it mostly comes from the core. I understand how my body works a lot better than someone who say just specializes in breaking, because their body, is leaning towards one style. So I kind of figured out what the best way for me was to learn. And one of my best ways of learning is reflective thinking. So if I learn something, no matter how much I drill it at one point, I can never get it at that time. My mind needs to kind of process, so I need to leave things alone and then come back to it after a while. But that's one way. The second way is drilling. So having drills like, the heel toe tap that I did, do the part where we're just drilling the foundations. So through drilling, you make a mistake and then that creates a variation of one step. So a lot of people think having a good foundation means knowing a lot of steps, but that doesn't really make sense, because all you can do is do that one step, and do another step, do another step, and it's kind of in a sense fragmented because you're just doing individual things and there's no flow. So when you think about it, back in the day, they didn't have 102 steps of hip hop, which is what I have currently on my list. Steps lasted for years. You think about it, Smurf lasted, he did that for years, so because if you have one step, you got to make different ways to do it, right? naturally. But here nowadays, this generation wants they want moves. So more moves, they think more foundation. But that doesn't necessarily make you a good dancer. Knowing how to make one move look amazing, or taking one move and making 10, that's how a good foundation moves. And that's kind of what I do. So I try to take one move and I'd say, okay, I'm just gonna stay with this and change that. And then of course go into the clubs. That's where the feeling comes from.
For those of you that are not
Yeah, if you can get to a club, it's the best thing to do because you can, part of the culture is battling, exchanging with people. This is how it grew. Hip hop, culture in general, the street dances came from battle, competition. So without that, the kind of edge, the culture can't grow. But that's the 3 ways that I kind of train. Not my dance, but I think my mentality.
All right.
Because I think, like, the mentality in this country is very, I call it takeaway culture. We tend to want to take. And the things we take only last for a certain time. We don't put anything back that will sustain what we're taking, if that makes sense. So going to Africa and kind of seeing how it is there kind of opened my eyes culturally, which made me kind of appreciate what hip hop culture is and not see the surface, the clothes, the music, the whatever, the surface of, hip hop culture. I kind of saw deeper into it, which made me appreciate it more. So I wouldn't say it affected my dance, but it affected my mentality, which affects my dance. Yeah, so. Traveling.
All right. But I mean,
I'm going into more depth.
All right, okay.
But yeah, traveling, because at the time where I was, at that point I was like, okay, I need to really learn. I couldn't learn it in this country because there's not many people who can give a clear understanding of what it is. I'm not saying I can give the best, but I can give a brief that gives you the introduction to what the culture is. So it's literally on traveling, going to events, competitions, and when you go to these events, you meet a lot of the people who, were the pioneers of these styles, and you just get talking to them, because a lot of people are afraid to approach them because they're like famous or this kind of big person who will never talk to me. But you literally approach them and they're happy for it, that you're asking them about the history, because they struggle to get this dance to where it is now. So literally traveling and speaking to people, whether they're people who are pioneers or people who just do the same styles. It's like an exchange. So I learned a step from you, I gave a step to this person, oh, I learned a bit of history from you, and then I gave it to this person, and that kind of transfers to different people as you travel. So yeah, traveling, documentaries, because there's a lot of them out there that are quite informative. Wrecking Shop, House of Trey, Respond to Sound, Everything Remains Raw, which you will never find, but I have it.
I'll cut that out.
New School Dictionary,
Yeah.
which is good, but there's some bits of it that are wrong, but it's still a good tool to have. Nowhere.
Nowhere.
There's nowhere that teaches it. I could probably count, not in 2 hands.
I'm ready.
Me. This is hip hop and house I'm talking about.
Whereabouts do you teach?
Where do I teach? I teach in Birmingham and Telford on a Tuesday, and then when I'm in London, I pretty much teach people in Trocadero. They have an underground space, so when people come, we just jam like we did today. Because even though you were just messing about, you were actually learning the foundations of hip hop, just in the jam environment, how it was meant to be done. So it's not necessarily you need to go to classes; you just need to find the right people and jam with them. But house, me, Bly, Clara when she's in the country, Turbo. Caramel, but she's a bit iffy, if I'm being honest. But she's one of those are probably only 5 that I could mention that I would say you could learn something in-house in a decent way. Hip-hop, the numbers go down. Not Caramel. Fly knows a few steps, but he doesn't dance the style, so he would go no. Turbo, yes, but he hasn't been training for a while. Told it. I can't really say anyone else who does hip hop. There's a lot of good freestylers, but Malcolm. He's a good freestyler, but in terms of knowing hip hop foundations, he's only recently been starting doing it. Believe it or not. Even though freestyle is a big part of the culture, but if you want it to sustain, we've now made it to a style. So to have a style, you have to have foundation, which we technically call a style. The closest thing I would say that you would have in terms of house,
It must be.
is the jazz fusion dancers or the bebop dance. If you probably, it's in your generation, you probably know them, right? Jazz fusion. There was a big transfer of house and jazz. I can't remember what year it was, but some of the house dancers from America came to exchange with the UK dancers, and some of the people from Japan came to the UK as well. So a lot of the Japanese house footwork you see came from the UK. But a lot of people don't know this, because there's a big exchange that happened back in the day. I can't remember the exact date, but if you ask someone called Brian Green, he's one of the pioneers of house hip hop and does every freaking style under the sun. He knows a lot more about the history of it, but in terms of pioneers of hip hop, I cannot find any. That's one of the problems in the UK. A lot of people stopped doing it, disappeared. But when it became popular like it and breaking, some people surfaced, but with hip hop, because hip hop still isn't as well known as people think, well, yeah, there's hip hop classes everywhere. Not really. There's choreography classes around called hip hop, but they're not hip hop classes. Plain and simple. You can ask them, what makes your class hip hop? Ask it. You wouldn't get an answer. It's raw. How? That's one of the things I got. Don't joke. What makes it hip hop? Oh, because I do it to hip hop music. So if I do this to classical, does that make it ballet? No. Nothing is new.
Yeah.
Period. There's a few documentaries, the sponsor sound, and everything remains raw. If you ask Andre nicely to bring me down to teach hip hop, I'll bring the documentaries with me, and you can watch them, because there's some that I promise not to give them out, because my friend made Everything Remains Raw, and because it's copyrighted, I can't give it out to people, because then I'll get in trouble and fine £7 million and shit like that.
You take it to jail.
For real. So he said I can show it, but I can't give it to him. So if I come down again, I can show you these documentaries. Angela's seen the documentaries. Nothing is new, is it? Everything has been done previously in different generations.
You're like Fred Astaire and all these guys. And like some
Those,
of them, I
yeah,
thought,
Nicholas Brothers. They're doing steps we're doing now.
Like so many
Yeah, nothing is new. So they say it's either, some people say it's a theory of that it's embedded within the blood of the people, so it's a subconscious thing. So it just needs the right environment for it to come back out, if that makes sense. So all these things that were done back in the day, I believe everything comes from Africa, so, in general. So all these steps, they're not new. It's just a different music and a different feel to the steps. But the style you're talking about in South Africa, is it called Venezuela or something? Starts with a P. Is it a lot of footwork stuff,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, that footwork is, like some of those. It was like,
yeah, and they've never seen Africa, have they?
They've never seen that. They've never seen that.
Exactly.
It's like
They've probably been doing that for hundreds of years, right?
It's old. It's an old dance. Old dance. Even the style of dress. We've got a style of dress which is to them equivalent to what lockers would wear. Now.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of videos. It looks dope.